welcome to this very quick Maven Lightning lesson. It is a great pleasure to be here with all of you. And yeah, we are going to overcome some adoption struggles. Okay, so here's the thing with the increase of or decrease of productivity, and what you will find a lot in my courses that's different from other people's courses. Most courses want to talk first and foremost about the technology. If you join for the long one, I'll tell you what AI is. I'll give you the ways of thinking about it, some evolution of AI without, getting you into the nitty-gritty of the math. But most of the time, the level of discourse is, let's start with AI, let's start with the tool, let's start with figuring out where we can shove it. And that is what we are not going to do here, because the problem almost always has to do with us. And what I very much hope we're going to do, us as a group, us as a community, and us as a planet, is that we will get over our shiny new toy feelings about this beautiful new tool that we have, and we will start to realize that the most interesting and challenging thing about AI is actually us. So there's a little introspection and a little organization level introspection that's going to be required as well. But if you're not thinking of it that way and you're thinking like AI is some kind of alien intelligence and it's just supposed to enhance us, then you get some surprisingly odd results, like this study out of MIT, very nice large sample size there, looking at engineers. Do they become more productive? And in that study, sure, and quite a solid increase in productivity if you think of engineers. I mean, if you trust their measurements. I have enough academic sort of academic background, echoes of my academic background, where I'm like, oh, well, would that be the measure of productivity that I would choose? Who knows? But let's say we trust them. They're saying a substantial increase in engineering productivity, 26%. And when you have something like that, that feeds right back in to creating better tools, better things later on. You can sort of see this idea of a compounding innovation effect. But on the other hand, and look, again, the academic in me knows that MIT and Upwork are not the same kind of academic institution, but bear with me. Then there's this other famous study, also quite a large sample size, that is saying 96% of C-suite leaders, that's you guys, right? A lot of you are C-suite leaders. You think, hell yeah, absolutely, productivity all over the place. And then what is the actual reality is their workforce, 70%, 77%, says, hey now, actually this has increased our toil, it's increased our nonsense. So how do we reconcile these things? I mean, I've already told you, someone in the chat just said they've implemented the wrong tool. It happens. There's more to it than that, I think. And so I'm hoping in this quick session with you to give you 3 points of view from which you can analyze this situation. But because everyone can do a study, everyone and their cat, I too can do a study, a bad one, uncontrolled. You guys in my LinkedIn audience, and of course I asked only some of you, not others, only the ones who've actually had a successful implementation to answer, but I know a bunch of you answered anyway, so, not exactly academically rigorous, but those of you whose organizations have actually gotten a worker productivity boost, organization level stuff, what was the hardest part? And in a little tangent on how we will, in hindsight, if we see the results, we'll be like, oh yeah, of course that was the one. Of course that was the rank ordering. Totally obvious, because your brain's going to do that. I'm going to stop you for a moment. If you haven't already seen the results on my LinkedIn, take a moment, think about what you think came in number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. And was there a strong leader? 2 strongish leaders? What do you think these results look like? Because if you have that think, then you won't be able to go do the hindsight biasy thing of, yeah, I knew it all along. So I'm going to give us a little moment to de-hindsight bias ourselves. Actually, while we have a look and we have a think and we really feel it, I'm going to keep chatting because I don't have that much time with you guys and keep admitting people from the waiting room. I really enjoyed a note from Dan Ariely, who is a professor at the graduate school that I attended when I did my neuroscience graduate work. He says he has a nice neat trick for hindsight bias, totally recommend. He goes, when he has a result he wants to share, some kind of plot, some kind of chart, he asks a bunch of people, friends, whoever, to tell him how they think the results are going to look. And then he also goes and does the study. And what he presents when he presents his presentations, too many times present used in a sentence, when he presents his presentations, he first shows the chart that's like, this is what people thought it was going to look like. And all the audience goes, it makes sense in hindsight, totally, yeah, obviously. And then once that hindsight bias thing is out of the way, then he presents the real result and people can be like, oh yeah, actually, that surprised me. So let's figure out, will you guys be surprised? You've all thought about what this should look like. And that is what at least my community on LinkedIn is saying. So still a little bit of teething pains on the identifying good opportunities. Surprising, I was surprised, I'll tell you, with how easy it apparently was to get leadership on board. But don't worry, I kept the slides in because I don't believe you. But finally, the convincing workers how to use it is a big one. So the 3 perspectives that I want to give you when you analyze this kind of stuff, so that you avoid the phenomenon of death by 1,000 pilots, as we like to call it, where you're just like, hey, you know what we'll do? We'll just ask everybody to do a little bit of GenAI something and then hope for the best and hope it makes sense for the organization. Take a deep breath and have these 3 points of analysis. First, the individual versus the organization, and these are totally different beasts. Second, the idea that what's new, one of the big things that's new with generative AI versus the old one, which would be called predictive or discriminative AI, is the one answer versus many answer thing. So this is important, huge. Going to spend plenty of time really chewing on it in the longer course. Here we'll do it quickly. And then finally, what does it mean to augment versus automate? So diving in, the question of does it make you more productive and what does that mean from the individual level? I want to bring up a concept of secret cyborg. So secret cyborg is a nice term, came out of, I think, Wharton, which basically says that your workers are likely to be secret cyborgs in that they are probably pretty okay with using generative AI tools for personal productivity boosts. What they're less okay with is telling you that they've done it. And so this should make us stop and pause and really see that there's going to be a root, a big kernel of difference between what it means at the organizational level and what it means at the individual level. Also, there is the problem that a lot of people are talking about generative AI these days, lots. And most of them are individuals talking about it from the individual perspective. And if you are a leader in an organization, that is kind of noise to your life. And yet, sometimes it's hard to tell what kind of room you're in. Chances are you're really hearing that individual productivity revolution. You're not hearing what the organization level wants to hear about. But say you're interested in it for individual productivity. How do you do it? What do you do? Maybe you guys are in the wrong room right now and you're like, what? Leaders, organizations, screw this. I need to be in a different room. Cool. Quick one for you. Chat.com, which OpenAI bought. First they bought ChatGPT.com, and then now they're really throwing their weight around in the URL space. Chat.com is what you can do. Chat.com, try something out. It won't hurt. Enjoy yourselves. Don't put your credit card information in there. For buying it, don't put it in the prompt line. It's as easy as using a cell phone to send text messages. It's not that big of a difficulty at the individual level to trying these things out. What kind of stuff might you want to have it do for you? That depends on your creativity, but a lot of formatting. If there's a kind of email that you need to format a particular way over and over, reformatting your flight information to send it to your friends, whatever you like. Formatting stuff is great. Summarization is great. Giving you a first draft to start with is great. Lots of nice, easy things for individuals. The organization has some rather different requirements, though. The organization needs whatever system is going to be put in place to play nicely with all its other systems at a cost that makes sense, where you think that you trust vendor continuity. Pretty much none of these things are going to be on the mind of an individual just trying some of these tools out. And for an individual, there's some really cool things going on. One, the UX is beautiful. If you think techie tools are hard, techie tools got much easier. If you know how to send a text message, you know how to use these things. Flip side for the organization, now your users expect all kinds of easiness. That should terrify you. That will hold your own UX, internal and external, to a new level, to a new standard. But if you look at these things essentially are talking about big decisions that will cost a lot, that will leave you with technical debt, and will give you some kind of system, if you choose to deploy it, that not only will interact with a lot of other systems, but may interact with them in a way that is foundationally unreliable. As in, things may change on the side of the provider that then change the behavior and performance on your end. So those are things that a user does not really need to think through, particularly since it's a lot of one-off stuff. Hey, reformat this email. Hey, translate this thing. Hey, generate me this picture of a hand, which is from early mid-journey, which I made for you there. When you hear the conversation being around these areas, you're at the organizational level. When you hear the conversation being around, hey, look at this one new cool hot thing that I can get ChatGPT to do, definitely individual level. And another note there is that the individual will find it fairly easy, particularly the creative individual, find it fairly easy to get some personal benefit out of it. But I ask you, what incentive does that individual have to share that with the organization? Which is why you get this secret cyborgs phenomenon. Why share? If you can quietly do a whole bunch of your work without ever telling your boss that your work is being improved, maybe it makes just so much more sense for you to keep that to yourself. And so we're seeing all these productivity gains for individuals, for individual employees, but companies are struggling to reap those benefits, particularly because there is so much investment required in all kinds of things. The security is higher. It's going to upset your IT department. A lot of choices you're going to make. Some of them you're going to hate yourself later. Anyway, we will go through all of these in the longer course and a little bit towards the end of this. But individual and organization levels, definitely an important distinction. And if you are talking about one, chances are you're not talking about the other. Next one is the one answer versus many. So as a quick reminder, the AI you were used to before generative AI, that was, in a nutshell, all about getting the right answer and applying a label. So one of my favorites of that is this fellow BJ May. He had a smart camera system for keeping people out of his house who were not supposed to be there. So it's a facial recognition system. It's supposed to look at a face, recognize if that is, in fact, our hero or not, and open the door if yes, otherwise leave the door closed, right? Simple. The idea here is that there is how many right answers? One right answer. And quick reminder for you, the reason I like this story is that this is a story of how AI does not, in fact, always get the right answers, even though it looks for them. So here, poor BJ May was initially locked out of his house because the camera decided to protect his house from Batman. So doesn't always work right. This is why you always have to build safety nets. You always have to think, what if we got it wrong? Always, always, always think about what if it's wrong, build for that, anticipate it. Then, what's the difference between this and generative AI? Well, I present to you from early mid-journey Picasso's famous laptop painting series. So as you well know, Picasso made many paintings of laptops. No, he didn't. He lived in the days before computers, but we could ask for a plausible exemplar of a painting Picasso might have made of laptops, something kind of in this style. Now, what you notice here is 4 different attempts. And if I don't like it, I just rerun that prompt and rerun that prompt and rerun that prompt, and I can get 700, 7,000 until I'm bored laptop paintings from Picasso. Those who wonder whether AI is creative, no, it isn't. The human creative chooses at the end which one is the one that most fits your vision. So creativity is still in the hands of the human artists and in the eyes of the beholder. But what we're doing here is we are producing many answers, potentially many right answers, potentially many wrong answers. And from an organization's point of view, you have really opened Pandora's box when you allow this kind of technology into your workplace. Why? Well, first things first, all AI systems make mistakes. And there's something that I call the AI reliability paradox. Recommend you check out my blog post on that if that catches your interest, and we'll also have it in the longer course. But the AI reliability paradox is a warning. When you have a system that seems to have been really, really, really performant, you've never seen it make a mistake, you will forget that it is capable of mistakes. And then the damage that you will do as a result of the mistake that you forgot was possible could really wreck your business, your livelihood, society. There are all kinds of horrible examples of this that get worse when it's AI. So instead of being like, do I really believe her that AI systems make mistakes? Think just for the good of all of us. Just plan for mistakes anyway. Even if you think these things are perfect, just imagine that they're not and build safety nets. So let's assume, and I'm right, but if you don't like it, you can just, humor me. But AI systems will always make mistakes no matter how good they get. Now you're telling me that in your organization, you're putting in a system that is capable of making mistakes, likely to eventually make mistakes, and produces many potential answers for situations where there are many right answers and there are many wrong answers, and you cannot, as a leader, necessarily say in advance what it means to give a right answer. Ooh, what a thing to release into your business and then rely on. Because it's all fun and games when all you're doing is saying, hey, we want to be a company that's showing that we're doing some generative AI stuff. So what we're going to do is we're just going to, give our users something, minimally dangerous to play with, like a music generator. We'll give them a fun music generator that sits on the homepage and leave it there. It's a very different thing when you start letting generative AI into systems where performance actually matters, where you rely on it, or where it can mess up either your workers' ability to do their work, much more serious things downstream. So the many right answers perspective is a huge deal. And furthermore, if you can state upfront what it means to get your task right, so much easier to work with. That's the kind of thing we were expecting from previous AI. When you as a leader, you're like, I don't know. What does it mean to write a good email? What are all the ways it could go wrong? What are all the ways it could go right? That is very difficult to think about. And so it's very difficult to test such systems. It's very difficult to put standards for such systems, and ultimately very difficult to trust these systems. So the many versus one right answer is a big shift in perspective if you haven't considered that. And then, of course, look at this situation. Let's say I'm writing the most important email of my professional life in a language I don't speak. Do I just send this? Or let me be more visceral. One day in the future, you have chosen a weird job. You are going to be diffusing bombs for a living. And so here's a new kit that you have suddenly opened up. You need to diffuse this ticking bomb. It's got 2 wires, red and blue. You sort of hold your multimodal ChatGPT 17 over it, and it says, cut the blue wire. My question is, are you going to? And would you do that if you knew nothing about the domain? And would it be safe for you to know nothing about the domain and be in that situation, right? I want you to really think hard about that. What does it take to actually get benefit from these systems? Either a domain of operation where it doesn't matter what the output is that much, or our next perspective, are we augmenting or automating? It is very tempting to see these tools as a big red button that you could just press and get whatever goodness out. However, if you think about those human out-of-the-loop settings, look ma, no hands, all automatic, producing its many right answers and many wrong answers, whichever way, on mission-critical stuff, very hard to test, very hard to even specify what you're looking for from it. And a lot can go wrong. With augmentation, that is saying, we're going to put it in the hands of people who know what they're looking at and would be able to go faster because they can quickly check whether what they're dealing with is any good. And of course, in order for that to work, constant reminders that AI is fallible are very important. Otherwise, people will fall asleep at the wheel and will stop looking, and it won't matter whether they would have known or wouldn't have known what they're looking at. So for you enterprise leaders to feel this one, the difference between the human in-the-loop productivity increasing, everybody responsible for your own output situation versus the truly at-scale enterprise automation. I'm going to invite you to play a nice game of Where's Waldo? Or if you grew up in a place that's more Commonwealth, like me, I'm from South Africa, you might call him Where's Wally? So we're going to play a little game of Where's Waldo in the org chart, right? So if you are using these tools, if you're asking your organization to use them to augment, that is human in the loop, some human is going to check the output and release it or not release it. Where does responsibility sit in this org chart? So let's find Waldo in the org chart. Who is responsible when something goes wrong? If it is human out of the loop, that's where the responsibility goes really quickly. Like when a self-driving car ends up having a problem, and maybe that problem involves accident, injury, death. Where are we going to look to find a scalp? Whose neck are we going to wring? It's right up there. Whereas when we have a driver in the car who's supposed to be responsible for everything, even if that driver is asleep at the wheel, that's how responsibility works. So when you say full-on automation, you are actually channeling responsibility up to a level that you may not be comfortable with organizationally. Whereas if you are saying, make yourself more productive, you are responsible for how you use it, then you end up with a distributed responsibility effectively. So when we talk to leadership about having all kinds of fun systems that make mistakes, produce many right answers and many wrong answers, and we ask them to fund these big projects and make sure that everything plays nicely with everything else, and then we say to them, and by the way, we're also thinking of making it human out of the loop. That doesn't feel too good. Even if they were really excited at first to go and get generative AI into the company, the true automation at scale is hard. So either you pick a domain where nothing can go wrong, or you do the human in the loop thing. That's kind of why those results end up happening and why, even though everyone talks a big game about enterprise level, enterprise scale automation, it tends to turn into tools for users to use. And then you hit the whole individual versus organization. The individual has to actually have the incentive to learn it and use it. And so if it doesn't make their work better, they're not going to want it. And if they already have a different way to make themselves better that is off the books, they have no desire to tell you, their leader, that they've made themselves more productive. They would rather have the task still takes 8 hours. Now it only takes 1 hour. They'll tell you it takes 8 hours and do whatever they're going to do, and potentially send your sensitive data where they shouldn't be sending it. So these types of management conversations and realities, this triple framework, I think is a lot more helpful than some of the hypey type of tools. So this course, this little lightning lesson, it's a 30-minute thing that is a little taste of the type of thing that we're going to do in my much longer 8-hour course. And so I would be remiss if I didn't do the whole, here's the bit link, here's the QR code, here's the get 20% off code for that course. And what that course is doing, it's running on December the 20th, I think that's a Friday, and the 21st, that's a Saturday, 4 hours each. And so for those who are going to enjoy some self-improvement towards the winter holidays, I know I do that kind of thing in December, this will be for you. So if you like what you're seeing here, please join us for that. And if you need templates for getting your organization to fund it, Maven is very good at that kind of thing, and I can help you find that if you need it.